Good afternoon. This is Paul Corder from Perfect Golf Event, and thanks for coming to our webinar today and for being on time. And so we're going to get started on time. And just a couple of housekeeping notes. There people will sign on late, so I'll have to repeat this a couple of times. But basically, we're going to go through the webinar. We have a lot of content. I'm not going to read every slide because I'll be glad to send you a copy of the presentation afterwards. So you'll have everything you need. I'll just go over the gist of what we're trying to cover. So if you need a copy of it, just send me an email afterwards. I'll send you a copy of the notes. We also have everything summarized in a book called the Golf Event Book that we just published. It's about 48 pages and covers all the different topics of running a golf event. So I'm glad to send you a PDF of that as well. So we're going to get started. As I said, sometimes we go quickly because you have a lot of stuff going on. If you have to leave, that's fine. I'll be glad to send you the notes. If you have questions, just populate them in the question field and I'll take a look at those at the end of the session. So again, thanks for listening and hopefully you'll enjoy the session. What you're trying to do is bring people together for a special cause. So if you ever tried to plan an event, then you know how quickly excitement can turn into something that's sort of overwhelming. And that's what we're going to try and walk through today. There's about 150,000 fundraising golf events in the US, and you have lots of competition for sponsors, players, donors, and everything. So one of the most important things that you want to cover is that you want to make sure that you know it's important to launch your event early so players and sponsors can get it on the calendar. You're absolutely competing with people for their money and their participation. So the sooner you have, I manage about 12 events personally, and I've had all my event sites up since last August for 2026 because I want to make sure everybody's got us in their planning for their budget. So that's something we're going to talk about today. You want to start, make sure as you're going through, and again, we're going to go through all the steps of running it. I know some of you are experienced organizers, some of you are new, so please be patient if some of the things are repetitive, but I want to cover all the basics. When you're running a golf event, it's important to have your committee set up. This is a good time if you had an event before to bring new members into your committee to energize the committee. Somebody maybe who played in your event last year who said, hey, that was really a lot of fun. How can I help? Maybe you want to add them to your session. And then one of the most important things I talk about when I'm working with my committees is making sure that you're always focusing them on teams and sponsors. Don't let them get distracted by, hey, what kind of hors d'oeuvres are we going to serve at the event? You know, that's not what's important. What's important is getting them focused on teams and sponsors. We'll talk about that in the database section in just a minute. You know, if you're going to have a committee, it's important to have a good committee chairperson. I try and keep all the information centralized, but you could have some subcommittees for like working with the golf course, somebody in charge of sponsorships, registration, hospitality, marketing. So you can divide up some of your responsibilities, but I always make sure that everything's being reported up to everybody so the whole committee feels like they're involved with what's going on in terms of planning the event. It's also important to have regular meetings. Now, because of Zoom and things, we do a lot more online meetings than we did before, which is great because people aren't driving across town. And then sometimes when you get them into these group meetings, into a conference room, you know, half an hour is spent talking about the local sports and the gossip. You want to have really good meetings. You want to have agenda ahead of time. So people are following an agenda. And the first two items in the agenda should always be, what are we doing on sponsors and what are we doing on players? You might consider for your event is an honorary chairperson. I've done that for some of my events. So if you have access to a local celebrity, an athlete, a businessman or woman in your community that's got some credibility, add them as the honorary chairperson. They don't really have to do anything, but they can sign letters saying come out and support the event. So I've had really good success, especially for new events, having an honorary chairperson for it. I had an event in Detroit, and the honorary chairperson was the grandson of Henry Ford. Well, obviously, that gave the event a lot of credibility. A lot of people wanted to be part of that event. So that gave us a lot of credibility. So think about that for your event. If you want, we've got a on the resources tab, and this applies to a lot of things I'm going to talk about today. I have my committee checklist. I think it's right here. Yeah. So I have a whole checklist that you can download. that shows you how to run your committees to be successful. So just go to perfectgolfevent.com and click on the resources tab, and all the handouts and templates that I'm talking about today are going to be there. And so again, for some of you who are coming in late, what am I, Joe Pesci? For some of you who are coming in late, I'll be glad to send you a copy of this presentation as well. One of the things I did, and we started this year and really had a lot of success, just a quick tip, I had business cards made for my committee members, and I just had a committee members, and I had them made so that when they're out at social events, other events, they had cards. They just give people and say, hey, we've got this golf event coming up. Here's a card. It's got an address to the website. We've really had good success for this. I've never done it before. It's the first time I've ever made cards up for committee members, but it's really been useful because they go to a lot of other social meetings for supporting. This is the Philadelphia Orchestra, but they're going to a lot of other orchestra events, galas, meetings, and they can say, hey, we're having a golf event. Here's a card, quick link to the website. Just a good tip you might want to think about. Choosing your right date. It's important when you're choosing your date that you pick the right time of year. And I'm not going to read, as I said earlier, I'm not going to read all these slides to you, but because all this is going to be in the presentation, but it's important to pick a day that works. I have a lot of success on having events on Thursdays and Fridays. Now, if you're at a private course, you have some limitations because most private courses will make you do it on a Monday when it's closed to other members. But I really had a lot of fun at events with Thursday and Friday because people can then go to the office in the early part of the week. And I like Thursday because they can then go back to the office on Friday. So they feel like not that they're playing hooky, but you want to pick, the right date for yours, and then, when are your people going to be available? Make sure you book your course 6 to 9 months in advance. And again, one of the things that's really important is to make sure you check for other sporting events that are going on. If you're doing an event in Alabama, you want to make sure you're not having an event anytime when the Alabama or Auburn could be playing football games or other major events. So maybe there's a NASCAR race in the area or some other kind of event that could pull people away. These are kind of the basic stuff you have to check when you're picking your date for your event. And then for your location, again, the private courses are good because sometimes players will play in your event just to get on a private course that they cannot normally play. They'll be more expensive, but you can attract people who want to play in that course. Public courses are fine, but if you're going to do a public course, you want to make sure you've got lots of activities added to the event to make it attractive to say, hey, I normally could play this course for paying, I pay $80 and I could play this course anytime. So why would I pay $200 to come play in your event? Well, because I've got hole-in-one contests and shootouts and prizes, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that whatever you're going to do, that you make it attractive for them to come to your location. And I've got examples. I've got a golf course checklist you can download. Again, on Perfect Golf Event. You want to go through it. Even if you've signed your contract, I would have somebody go through this checklist to make sure everything is covered so that you don't have any surprises. And the number one surprise you're going to have is rain policy. So make sure you understand the rain policy because it's very important. So for all my events, I have a rain date. So on the website, it says, hey, we're planning the event on September 26th, but our rain date is October 5th. So I said, we're not going to let you cancel. We're just going to move it till October 5th. And it's already on the website telling us that. So that's important to have a rain date and try and work that out with the golf course. Also, you need to understand the golf course policy on rain dates. In most golf courses, if you play 9 holes and then it rains, they're going to call it a full round in your event. That's your event. If you don't play 9 holes, then in many cases, if you only got 7 or 8 holes and all of a sudden lightning comes in, they'll usually let you start over again on your rain date with a completely new round. But I know some of you are shaking your head saying, I don't even know what my golf course does. So that's a good question, something for you to check on. And again, if you're interested, we're partnered up with Vortex, and Vortex will offer you rain insurance. So if it does rain the day of your event, it'll cover your expenses, even if you have to move your date to a rain date. it'll cover some of those expenses that are involved with removing your date. So if you're interested, just contact us and we'll hook you up with Vortex, who does weather insurance for charity golf events. Couple things before we get into sponsorships. Make sure you've got a strong message. Clarify why you're raising money. Sponsors and players need to understand, why are you raising money? I can't tell you how many websites I look at and it doesn't have a message on the home page that says, come on out for my golf event. Here's why we're raising money. Clarify it and make sure it's specific. It's not like, well, money will support our scholarship fund. It said, proceeds will fund two $5,000 scholarships, etc. The funds will go towards a new animal shelter. No, it's going to go be used to purchase medical equipment for the new surgical suite. So you want to be very specific on where you're raising money. You're asking people to take time out of their schedule to give you money, especially sponsors. You want them to know specifically how the money's being used. It should be on the home page of your website. You want to make sure you've got a brand. Do you have a logo for the event? Are your colors consistent? Do you have a tagline? Here's an event that I run down in Florida, and we've done this event. This will be our 11th year, but we have the same logo for all 3 years, same color patterns and all that. And we've got a nice tagline because we have $1 million shootout as part of the event. So I try and encourage events, build a brand, just like you see other companies that have brands. Make sure that you've got a brand set up so that you've got a logo, some colors, stay consistent, and all your signage and everything at the event should all follow the branding guidelines, just like you would do with your company. You also want to make a decision on format. So this is very important. There's some people say there's 150,000 charity golf events. Some people say as many as 300,000. It's up in the air, but let's say there's a lot of charity golf events. There's going to be a lot because it's still a very safe environment. You're outside. You're not going to be getting colds or COVID or anything like that. So what's different from a 4-person scramble? 99.9% of all the golf events held in the U.S. are 4-person scrambles. You know that because you're probably doing a 4-person scramble. So you might want to think about doing something different with your format. And I have a whole webinar where I teach it on how to do web formats. But what you might want to do is consider a change in your format. And you can modify your format simply just to make it more attractive for people to come out. You might have an 18-hole scramble, but then maybe you have a shootout at the end. You might do 9 par 3 holes and 9 regulation holes. I do that for a lot of my events where we move up the tee boxes on 9 holes, and we have 9 regulation holes and 9 par 3 holes, which gives us a chance to play faster and have 9 hole-in-one contests. You could do all 18 par 3 holes. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And then some events do 18 holes normal scramble in the morning, and then they have a par 3 event in the afternoon for casual golfers. And I really like this format. So they play a normal round in the morning, and then later in the afternoon, we have a little 9-hole par 3 tournament, and then everybody's invited to come in for the awards reception. Very, very interesting format, and it gets more people involved with your event. And here's an example of this is the one we do for Folds of Honor. This would be their 6th or 7th year, but they've taken their event and they moved their tee box up, so all 18 holes are par 3 holes. So they have 18 hole-in-one packages, and then they have a chance for everybody to win up to $10,000 at each hole. And they sell all those contests as sponsorships, so it covers the cost. The beauty of this type of event is their event's done in 3.5 hours. And they've been sold out every year. I think last year they raised over $200,000 net at their event because people said, I want to come back. I want to be back at this event because I'm not out. If you've done an event, you know that a 4-person scramble could last 5 to 6 hours. It's just like a death march out there. And so what you want to do is, can I get an event done faster? And then do an all par 3 events, get you done in 3.5 hours. And I tell you what, they'll come back the following year because that happened. One of the most important things, and I cover this in all my webinars before we get to sponsorships, is make sure you got your budget set. So make sure you've set up your budget and got all your expenses and revenue projections laid out. I've got a template you can use, and here's where you can plug in all your prior results and then you can plug in your revenue projections for 2026. And I want you to be very specific on each one. What am I going to make from the putting contest? What am I going to do for my auction? How many pin flags are we going to sell? So you plug in all your data. Then you can go down below and you can plug in all your expenses, and you're going to come up with a net number. Then you'll know at that point what you're going to make. And if your net revenue is not what you want, well, obviously you have to go back and figure out how to make additional revenue, or you got to figure out how to cut your expenses. This is a very important step in planning your event. So make sure, if you want, again, you can download this template under the resources tab. And it's a very important thing to have going forward, is to be able to measure your progress each year very specifically by the different categories. And one tip I'll give you is I reduce a lot of my expenses by trading sponsorships. So if I'm going to have a program for my event, when I'll go out to a local printer and say, hey, if you will print my program, I'll give you a sponsorship in my event. What does it cost me? A sign. So $22 to have a sign saying, so-and-so printer is the official printer of our golf event. And so maybe they don't give you a 100% discount, but they give you a discount. So you're always looking for ways to increase your bottom line, and trading sponsorships is an excellent way to do that. Make sure you've got your website set up. We found that if you didn't have online registration for your website, you were missing out. 22% of people had online registration and didn't have it the year before, increased their funds by 22%. People want to pay online. They want secure online transactions. They don't want to have written forms. They don't want to put their credit card onto a form. My son doesn't even know what a fax machine is in terms of that. So make sure that they can register online securely. And the good news is you can have things on the site where they can add more things into their cart. So they can buy a foursome, they could buy putting contests, they can buy mulligans, buy shirts, whatever, all in one transaction. Make sure if you've got a perfect golf event website. The nice thing is that you can go set your site up for 2026 by just one click copying over, and you're already set up for the following year. So whether you use us or not, I'm not going to read this to you, but this is my checklist that I use to say, if I'm going to have a website for my golf event, these are the features that I want to make sure that I have it, including accepting donations, doing player pairings, social media links, all the things you want to have sorted. So I'm just going to, you can have this. I said, I'm not going to read this to you, but because I'll send you the presentation, but you may want to go through and make sure whatever website you're using, hopefully you're using us, but if not, make sure you've got all these things covered so that you've got the right website for your event. You'll have a more successful event, and it'll let you spend your time finding players and sponsors. Building a database, very important step. If you're going to have an event, you've got to have a database. Who are you marketing this event out to? So you need to have a database of potential players and sponsors. It could be past supporters, past golf participants if you had the event before. It could be committee members. This is vital. Your committee members and all of their contacts, staff, supporters, vendors, anybody you write a check to, referrals. I'll talk about referrals in a minute. Golf course. The golf course may not give you their database. Well, they won't give you their database. But what they might do is do an email blast out to their members or their participants if it's a public course saying, hey, we're going to have a great event coming up. Here's the dates for it. So you want to ask the golf course if they'll do some promotion for your event. There's some community directories, and I have a whole webinar coming up next week on how to sell sponsorships that covers a lot of this. But from your standpoint, the idea is that you want to get your database built. And what I do with my events, I make sure the committee members have social media images, and I provide them to them and say, hey, send this out to all your contacts. So you want your committee members, your staff, your supporters, everybody promoting your event out. But you also want them giving you lists of people. So you may say to somebody, could you give me some names of people that I can add to our database? So as we're doing our email marketing, we're including them in our promotions for the event. Your database is really important. And then you want to make sure that you're tracking it. Let's go back. That you've got a summary where you're tracking who's on your list, who's following up, what's their status. So when you have a committee meeting, you can sit down and say, okay, here's where we stand. We got 25 potential sponsors. We got 15 potential teams. You'll know when to hit the panic button, when to pick up your activity. which also then leads us into the marketing. So you've got to make sure that you've got a marketing plan set up. And when I use this, I have a marketing calendar that I use for all of my events. And I go through this marketing calendar with my committee. And basically, we go through the marketing calendar and we look at all the activities we should be doing. Are we doing social media posts? Are we doing email blasts? Are we doing phone calls? Are we doing whatever? We have committee meetings. And then we can look to see where we're missing it. Are we missing a month where we're not doing any particular activity? And this is a calendar you can download again on the resources tab. But along with the budget planning template, this sample market calendar, it's a great way for you to look and say, hey, we should be doing certain things and we don't have anything going on in May. What are we doing here? We got an event coming up, and then where you can fill the gaps. And same place that you download it, you can download my marketing checklist. It kind of gives you some of the tips on marketing your event. Hopefully you'll find that useful as well. Now, sponsors. Again, I do a whole webinar coming up next week on how to sell sponsorships, but this highlights is, remember, sponsors are going to be the net revenue from a golf event primarily comes from sponsorships. Golfers will cover your operating expenses and you can make some money off the golf packages, but the real revenue comes off of your sponsors. So you want to make sure that you've got the right sponsorship packages set up, because sponsors are going to give you the financial support you need. They're going to support you with things for your auction. They're also going to sponsor the contests that you're going to have on the event. So when you're having hole-in-one contests and things like that, sponsors are going to cover those costs. So remember, when you're going out there, if you're going to have a hole-in-one contest, the sponsor is going to cover the cost of that hole-in-one insurance, $1 million shots, putting contest. They're going to get recognition. Players are going to get a chance to win prizes, and then you're making revenue off of those sponsorships. One of the things that's really important is to understand the sample sponsorship packages. And again, you can download this template. This is a list of all the sample sponsorships I have for my events. And I'm not going to read those to you, but I'm going to give you an example. You can see how many pages of sponsorships I have. Let's go back. You can see for my events, I've got 4 pages of sponsorships. Now, you might not have a title sponsor for 25, depending on your area. Maybe it's 10,000. I do one here in St. Louis where my title sponsor is 100,000. But you can still have things where they get teams, and there's things you can put in your sponsorship packages that don't cost you anything, but are really advantages to the sponsor. It makes them say, I want to be a sponsor. Let them tee off on hole number 1. Give them reserved parking. Make sure they have a logo on the marketing materials. So I want you to do is take a look, because I'd say this, when I look at the websites being set up a perfect golf event, I'd say probably 30%, 40% of them don't have enough sponsorship packages. And so I always encourage them, add more. You might not sell them all, but you want to have a lot of sponsorship packages at different levels. Now let's talk about attracting players. One of the things you want to find out is, what are you offering that makes your event special? Let's say, for example, this is an event that I did in 2025 for the Backstoppers. And in St. Louis on that date, there were probably 40 golf events. It was a nice, I think it was on a Thursday. I think it was, Thursday or Friday. But anyway, there are tons of golf events. So I said to people, you want to come out to my event? Well, here's what we're going to have. We're going to have a great luncheon buffet. We've got a drone drop. We got hole-in-one contests where you can go to the Masters. We've got all these on-course contests. Afterwards, we had a shootout for $1 million with a $1,000 prize. We had buffets. We had beer sampling stations. I had 4 liquor sampling stations. I had a taco truck next to a tequila station. I had cigars. So when people were making their decision on where they wanted to play their golf event, do they want to go someplace where it's a straight 4-person scramble with a box lunch? Or do they want to come out with something like this? I'm going to tell you, you need to sit down with your event and say, hey, what are we doing that makes it? And my team will help you. You don't have to spend millions of dollars. You can come up with some very interesting things for your event that are not expensive, but make it different than every other event being held the same day. And that's how you build momentum for year after year for your event. You want to make sure you want to be able to attract players by highlighting why you're raising money, and then make sure you've got a lot of things going on like your event day highlights. things like goodie bags, food and beverage, all those things. Again, I'm not going to read these to you. One of the things you do want to do is make sure you've got good player gifts. You want to have player gifts they're going to remember. Don't give them something junky. I don't really like giving golf balls because they lose them in the woods. But you can give them things like, backpack coolers, chairs, things where your logo is going to be around. They'll remember your event the following year. Sponsors will usually cover the cost of the player gifts in exchange for recognition. And again, if you want to see, we've got about a couple thousand player gift ideas on our website, and they're all customized for your event. But have nice quality. Don't give junky gifts. Give something that they're going to remember, and then say, I'm going to come back to that event the following year. A couple other ways to market your event is generating referrals. And this one's really important. First of all, I want to say to people, just ask. That's important, is just ask. Sometimes what I'll do, and here's what I do with my committees. Somebody signs up to play in my golf event. Somebody from the committee is assigned to call them and say, thank you very much for registering for our event. We really appreciate it. Do you know anybody else who might want to play? If somebody buys a sponsorship, same thing. Thanks for sponsoring. Do you know any of your business contacts that may benefit from coming to this event as well? They're so stunned that they get a phone call, because I know all of you send a nice thank you email. That's very proper, but it's not very imaginative. So call people, and it's amazing. You can have incentives. You can give them bonuses like entering the putting contest or raffle tickets. But I've found by just asking, I get referrals, and that phone call sets you apart from every other event out there. People do not get called. They get an email blast from someone. Thank you for registering. We appreciate your support. Why not pick up the phone and ask them for referrals? You want to make sure that you've got a media kit. So all my events, I've got a media kit set up. It has a letter about the event. I have an organization's brochure, the event brochure, a little fact sheet about the event, and then who the contacts are, and I put them all in a folder. Now, here's an interesting tip. Newspapers aren't going to use this media kit to write anything about your event. The only way they do that if you had an interesting story, like your event's going to be benefiting some specific person or cause that's interesting. That could be helpful. But I use it to sell sponsorships. When I go into a presentation to a sponsor and I said, by the way, here's our media kit, here's a copy of our press release. And if you become a sponsor, we'll add you to the press release and put you into the media kit. And then they'll always say to me, you have a media kit? What kind of event is this? I said, it's a serious event. We treat it seriously. We treat your dollar seriously. We treat your sponsorship seriously. You need to be part of this event. This would put you in the top 0.5% of all events out there just even having a media kit. Again, this is part of something I focus on my sponsorship webinar, but just something to have a media kit to say I can offer this. Social media is important. And again, I won't read this, the 12 ways to use social media, but I will go back to this. So, and if you're using Perfect Golf Event, we'll provide you social media images that are already sized for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, because they have different size requirements. And then I send those social media images out to my committee and say, please post them. Post them on LinkedIn, post them on Twitter, post them on Instagram. Please get it out and ask your contacts to post them. You have to use social media to maximize your marketing efforts. It's a great way to do it without spending a ton of money. All right. Now we're going to get into a couple of nitty-gritty details as we wind down here. Volunteers. I have a volunteer checklist. I probably get asked, probably this is one of the top 3 or 4 things people ask me is, what are my volunteers for? How many do I need? You can download my the checklist. It's on the resources tab. This lists you all the volunteer things that they should be doing. And then on it, I've got things like, well, if these volunteers are checking supplies, can they move around? Yeah, they can check the supplies, and then yes, they can be moved to somewhere else. So you want to have a volunteer checklist. You want to make sure you have enough volunteers for your event to make it successful. I actually have a volunteer training manual that I'll send you a copy of, that I use to tell the volunteers where everything's going to be. Because, you've been to Disney World. The number one question the guides at Disney World are asked are, where's the restrooms? Well, it's your people come in and people say, where's the putting contest? Where's lunch? Where's the driving range? Make sure all your volunteers understand all that. Make it a really good player experience. Oh, by the way, I think this should have been earlier on. here's the social media images. So example, these a couple of events that I'm working on, and you can see that I've got social media images. They're different sizes because Twitter, or X, it's called, Facebook and Instagram have different requirements. But these are so easy to flip out to your committee members and say, hey, you know what you think? Just post this on your Facebook account, post this on Instagram. And so again, if you're using Perfect Golf Event and you're at the birdie level or above, we'll provide you the social media images. I also use LinkedIn a lot. And to me, LinkedIn is probably the most powerful place to promote your event because it's a business to business site. And when I call the players that are playing in the event or sponsors who are sponsored, I said, hey, if you're on LinkedIn, would you mind putting a note that you're participating in my event? So all your content, those of you who are on LinkedIn, I mean, I have 700 contacts on LinkedIn. I probably know 15 of them, but they're on there. And so when I post somebody, posted, 700 people see it, that there's going to be a golf event coming up. So again, you need this power of referrals and social media extension, and it's a geometric progression. Ask this person to put it here, ask this person to put it there. People see it. That's how you build up momentum for your event. I actually did a preview event. So this is something that's interesting. What you do is, I had an event for the Philadelphia where in November we invited people to the golf course. Now our event's not till April, but we invited them out to the golf course, and we had hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, and we had a putting contest and hit some golf balls. And we asked everybody to bring a potential sponsor or potential team to the preview event. And it was a great way to build momentum for our event, something you should think about. I also do a sponsor appreciation event. So for the Backstoppers, which I've done this event, this again be our 8th or 9th year. Excuse me. I invite all of those previous sponsors to come out on June 20th, and we play 9 holes of golf. We have lunch, 9 holes, and then I have a little reception, and we talk about the 2026 event, which is until September. But I say, bring some potential sponsors. So I'm thanking the existing sponsors. I'm saying, bring some new potential sponsors. And this is why this event's been successful every year. Everybody wants to be in the appreciation event. So they say to me, how can I get into it every year? You got to be a sponsor every year, and then we'll invite you, and then we want you to bring some friends out. So we get more and more sponsorships everywhere. So there's things you can do. When somebody says to me, I'm not getting any activity, I say, you just got to put your thinking cap on. There's plenty of ways to build momentum for a golf event. You just got to think about it and put some effort into it. Okay, now this one I'm definitely not going to run through because there's a lot of slides here, but I'll send the presentation to you, and you can download under the handouts the golf event book, which is 48 pages of complete details on how to run a golf event. But you want to make sure that you've got enough contests, especially things like hole-in-one contests. And again, in 2025, these are types of contests. Remember, we can do contests for anything you want, anything you can put a value on, we can do the insurance on. So it could be a boat, it could be travel, whatever it's going to be. And then you go out to advertise to people to say, hey, come out to my event. And what you're doing is you're just buying insurance. So if you want to have a $10,000 hole-in-one contest, you pay insurance, it's maybe $290. And if somebody gets a hole-in-one, we pay the $10,000. But you get to advertise, come on out to my event. You could have a chance to win $10,000 or win a boat or whatever it's going to be. I had somebody win $150,000 cash last year for a Folds of Honor event. So it was pretty good shot. 190 yards in the wind, made a hole-in-one, won $150,000. So use your imagination. You can do any kind of hole-in-one. Our most popular is split the prize, where if somebody makes a hole-in-one for 20,000, 10,000 goes to the winner, and 10,000 goes to the charity. So again, my team could help you with any ideas you have or need for hole-in-one contests. And you can customize your contests to your area. For example, if you're in Philadelphia, you could do things that tie to the Eagles or the Sixers. I did one in St. Louis for a chance to go to see London when the Cubs and Cardinals were playing in London. We had a hole-in-one contest to go trip there. So depending on where you are, we can customize contests to your areas. Again, I'm not going to read all these contests because I'm going to give you the summary, but there's things you can add to your event. You can add $1 million shots, shootouts, putting contests, chipping contests, long drive, closest to the pin, straight drive, I do a lot of golf ball drops. These are you make a lot of money off a golf ball drop. You can either use a fire truck, a helicopter, or a drone. Drones are becoming really popular, especially because there's no weather involved. With helicopters, you can have some weather. Um, so this was one we did for the fire trucks. We just brought a fire truck up and we had a golf ball drop, $100 per golf ball, three for 250. And whoever's close to the pin when we dropped the golf balls won $2,500. We raised a lot of money with this one. People entered it, and then we just dropped the golf balls right after tee off. It was a lot of fun. Everybody played in it. And there's some new things we've added last year. We have a new partner in TrackMan, where TrackMan will bring out a TrackMan, and everybody gets their swing taken. They get a swing analysis, and it's a great sponsorship because everybody gets a video of their swing, and the sponsor logo is on that video. And you can have a long drive contest, guess your distance contest, all using the TrackMan. So it's easy automatically to do it using the swing analysis. This was really popular last year. I think I added it to 10 events, and I probably have 20 events that I'm doing with it this year. So there's lots of things you can add to bring new activity. And I'll show you where you can download the guide. So you do raffles, mulligans. You may want to consider a super ticket. And this, you'll appreciate this. For my events, I do a super ticket because I don't want to have what I call the buffet line. And what the buffet line is where people go there, you register, and then they have to buy one booth where they buy raffle tickets, one booth where they buy mulligans, one booth where they get into the putting contest. Excuse me. So it's like a buffet line. Just put one super ticket together. So here we had, for an event I did, entry into the putting contest, 2 mulligans, entry into the drone drop. And it was, it was $100, one transaction. So you didn't have a bunch of different transactions with a bunch of lines that people don't want to sit in. So again, consider a super ticket as a great way to raise money and make it easy at registration. So that's just something to think about. And you can put anything you want into your super ticket. If you want, we have an ebook called Top Fundraising Contests and Activities. It's about 22 pages, and it's got all the new ideas for raising money with contests. Just send an email to support at Perfect Golf Event, and they'll send you the guide. A couple last minute things here before we have the final checklist. If you don't have an online auction, you want to set one up. They're easy to do. Oh, let's go back. They're easy to do. You can link it to your golf event website. You can get donated items. It's great for getting items. We're doing a webinar tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central Time on how to run an auction. But an online auction is a great way to raise additional money. Businesses will donate things for your auction, gift certificates, go rounds of golf from your committee members. But consider adding an online auction to your event site. Last one, sourcing volunteers. This is a checklist you can use for how to source your volunteers. It's very important to find the right kind of volunteers, people who are energetic, going to help your event. Again, I don't want to read this to you, but this is a checklist. And I think I already showed you the checklist on how to do assignments. There's a lot of checklists that you have to deal with. Again, when you run an event, there's event day checklists, a lot of things you have to deal with. I'll cover a couple of them now, and then I'll send you a copy of the presentation. So prepare your players. Make sure ahead of time that you tell your players everything they need to know ahead of the event. The date, arrival, dress code. Do they have GPS? What do they learn about weather? Do they bring cash for tips? Event day contests. Make your event special. 82% of the people we surveyed said they judge an event on how well it's organized on the check-in process. Remember I talked about buffet lines? You don't want long lines. Make sure you got yourself set up. For mine, I divide my registration alphabetically, A through L, M through Z, so that people aren't standing around in huge lines. And this kills it. You kill it right from the start. When they get out of their cars, they look up and they go, oh, no, there's 30 people in line, and I got to buy my mulligans and my raffle tickets, and this is going to be a long day. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure it works well. Have welcome packets. What I do for my events, I have a radio set up. So when the person comes up and they drop their bag, my radio person says, Bill Johnson's arrived, because they don't even have to ask Bill his name. His name's on his bag tag. Bill Johnson's here. Now, my group can pull Bill Johnson's packet up there. And when he comes up, we say, Mr. Johnson, thanks for coming. Here's your packet. I can't tell you how impressed they are when something like that happens. So you want to make sure that you make the experience of when they get there the best experience possible, because they're going to remember that, and they're not going to come back if it was a hard process. Like nobody knew where the bathrooms were, nobody knew where the putting green was, nobody knew when lunch was. I stood in a long line to buy my raffle tickets. These are the things that will kill your event before you even tee off. You want to make sure you've got signs. I work with the golf course and I have a layout for the golf course. I tell them where I want all my signs laid out to make sure people can find their way around, direction signs, my sponsor signs. So make sure you've got a sign plan and make sure you have decent signs. Don't get those junky signs that look like a golf ball and then you paste a piece of paper on there. Please, your people are giving you money to be sponsors. Get quality signs. Make sure you look very professional and it should match your brand like this. So you want to make sure that you've got a nice set of signs so that your sponsors say, hey, that was worthwhile. Please don't have those junky ones that look like half a golf ball. It's just horrible. And then don't save the people who save their signs year after year. That just killed me right now. It's just make sure you have nice new signs, crisp signs that people can see. All right, so this is a couple tips about making your event special. This is things about talking to the clients. You keep your players informed, center play. I don't want to read these again to you. And then these are just other tips about getting ready. Your pre-event checklist. This is very important. Make sure you've got your team set up, your rosters are set up, all your materials are set up. You've got it worked out with the golf course, all your details. Make sure you've got a final course walkthrough, final inspection. Make sure that everything's ready so there's no surprises when you get to the event. And again, you've got your event day checklist, and I'll send you this so you'll have it. And in my book that I'm going to send you, there are much more details because I couldn't want to fill up a bunch of slides, but you'll have everything you need. Then after your event, make sure you wrap it up. You have an award ceremony. Make sure people are happy. Thank everybody. Thank the volunteers. Thank the committee members. Maybe you send everybody home with a small prize. I send them home with a brochure about my next event, so I remember the next event. So that's what I tell you. Make sure your next event is scheduled. Offer everybody. I have a table as they're leaving. I said, hey, did you have a great event? Oh, how fun was it? Do you want to sign up for next year? Our event for next year is this date, and I can reserve your spot right now. No obligation, but at least you'll have a soft reservation. You know, you're fools not to ask for the sale. So just something to set up. Maybe have a postcard that says, here's a note about next year's event. Save that. And then afterwards, make sure you've done everything. Debrief with your committee, pay your vendors, pick up your signage, make sure the golf course is clean, upload your database, and then make sure everybody knows about your following event. And the last thing is use our perfect photo gallery. It's a tool we developed where you can upload all your photos and you can send a link out to all the players and say, hey, thanks for playing. Here's a link to all the photos from the event. And by the way, our event in 2026 or 2027, the date is going to be such. So again, if you go to a Perfect Golf event, I have a webinar that's just called Ultimate Checklist. It might bore you to death, but if you want to go through it, it's going to go through in more detail all the checklists and things. So I know we went quick. We covered a lot of topics. I know you're going to give me a review saying we went too fast, but I just want to make sure we cover everything. And you can download any of the templates on Perfect Golf Event under the Resources tab. You can send me a note with any questions or any ways we can help. Let's have a very successful event and join me for future webinars. Thanks very much for listening.